it's a little jarring. And then like Sleepaway Camp, I was like, okay, I'm digging this. I'm digging this, and then it's like, oh, the girl has a dick, and it's like, wait, what?
Well, welcome back to the Jony Horror Podcast. I swear every time I want to say the Jony Horror Show, I want to say it so bad. I am here with my buddy Jeffery Genet. And we're going to talk about some horror movies today. So, Jeff, just right out the gate, I hate intros. I hate fucking the dog and pony show. So I'm just going to jump right into it. What was the first horror movie you ever watched?
I have no clue. My parents tell me that I used to, or I knew how to use the VCR pretty early on in life, like age of 3, essentially.
Okay.
And my parents didn't have very many VHSs. I think they had in the Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and a handful of Disney films. But my grandparents used to own a video store, so they had literally any movie you could think of. So I had every Disney movie essentially, and then on the other side of the house, we had my uncle's movies, and he had a lot of horror movies, a lot of sci-fi films, and a lot of like action. So when my parents would take me over there while they were at work, my mom would usually come to pick me up, and I would be watching something like Cinderella or Lion King or Friday the 13th or Alien or literally anything that I could get my hands on and pop in the VCR and hit play on. So I don't know what the first horror movie I saw was. I know I have like some images of some films, like I think it was Alien Resurrection, the fourth one, I think, where she's like in this like tube, you see the glass or whatever, and then the xenomorph's face comes into the shot. I remember that. But a lot of other films that I saw, I don't really remember the imagery from. So I'll say probably one of those, one of the Alien movies.
Alien Resurrection.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got my kid trying to break into the studio. So that's what the door handle is. I don't have anybody locked in a closet or anything like that.
No ghosts.
Well, how about this? How about we rephrase that? What was the first like horror movie or imagery that you saw, and maybe a movie that isn't necessarily a horror movie that left like a lasting impact on you as a youngster or even as an adult? What was the thing that you're like, oh god, that was terrifying?
Well, a lot of horror movies don't really scare me.
Mm-hmm.
That's like growing up, since I had watched so many as a kid, I kind of got used to that. And like growing up in like a semi-haunted house, like I was used to shit coming around.
Mm-hmm. And
so when I would watch horror films, I wouldn't really get as scared as the other people that were watching them. I'd be in the theater and everyone's jumping around, and I'm just going like, oh goodness, that's a cool effect, yeah. But a lot of the scary things that resonate with me are more so like sounds and things. So I remember I have 2 films in particular that had impressions on me. The first one was, and I don't even think it's a horror movie, but Annihilation.
Yeah.
That scene with the bear.
The bear.
When you hear it, the woman screaming within the roar, I like all over. I just got chills. I was like, it was the singular most scary thing I've ever seen in a movie in my entire life. And I loved every second of it. And when that bear finally came in, I'm like, that is cool. And so I'd have to say Annihilation, the bear scene, and then the Blair Witch Project with And I know you haven't seen it, have you?
I have not seen it.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of things in that film where you just hear random things out in the woods.
Yeah.
Like one of them is like they're in the tent and the tent starts moving around. You hear all these kids laughing. That freaked me out. I did not care for that. Like kids and old people in movies, I just can't. Not a fan of that. But that without seeing it, because you kind of let your mind go when you just hear audio. So I feel like the imagination that you have kind of creates scarier images than when it's actually shown on screen. So I feel like that's why audio in general scares me the most. But those are the two I have to pick.
Yeah,
sure.
I would agree with you on that. Though that the imagery of the bear in Annihilation is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah,
as well.
And like when you can't really see it in the movie, but like if you look at the computer animations and stuff, the lady's skull is in the side of the face. Yeah, and I didn't notice that in the movie, but like looking at renders and stuff, I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy.
Annihilation is like was a fun surprise. I knew kind of what it was about, and I knew that the same director had done Ex Machina, which was an incredible film, and so watching it and the beginning of the movie, I thoroughly enjoy. I like this idea of, this. I'm always a big fan of like we lost a team, to whatever it is, whether it be Annihilation or like Event Horizon or something like that. We're like, oh yeah, we sent in a team and we lost contact. I love that setup because that plays into what you were talking about before, where your mind starts.
Yeah, what was so bad that
what happened? Yeah. And I just love that setup in just about any movie I've ever seen it in. I think it's so cool. Very rarely does it live up to my expectations, but I thought Annihilation did a very good job of setting that up, and what's going on inside that bubble that they're in, and that that bear scene is fantastic and everything. That's great. That was great that you brought that up, because the minute you said it, I was like, oh yeah, that the sound in that is actually absolutely terrifying. Well, we're recording this on December 1st, and I had wanted to talk to you about some holiday horror movies. And part of the reason that I wanted to talk to you specifically about this is when you and I officially met for the first time a couple of months ago, you had talked to me about how you had seen the documentary In Search of Darkness, and how that had a similar effect on you that it did me, where they listed an insane amount of 80s movies, and everyone gets to talk about these 80s movies and the things that they love or the things that they don't love about those movies. And it was, personally for me, it was really inspiring and reignited the love for horror movies that I had when I first got into horror, and I wanted to watch every single one of those films that I hadn't seen, basically. And I know it was a similar thing for you, and I think that in that sort of aspect of you being hungry for, older horror movies that you aren't familiar with, that I was like, oh, well, I wonder which Christmas horror movies Jeff has seen. And turns out that you hadn't seen that many, but I gave you a list of films to watch, and you watched it in like a day or something like that.
Yes, I did. Yeah. I had the kid with me all day, so I actually finished Thanksgiving morning, but I didn't want to be like, I didn't want to bother you on Thanksgiving and say, yeah, I finished these movies. And I was like, okay, I'll just wait till tomorrow morning and I'll text them, you know. I don't want to be like, I watched 4 movies in like 24 hours, you know. But yeah, I just do that sometimes. I do it like once a year. I'll be like, okay, 30 movies. I think one year I even did 70 movies in like a month. And I was just like, I had insomnia. I was depressed. I didn't have a job. I was like, all right, 4 to 5 movies a day, and I was just going through it, you know.
I love that. I mean, to me, it's something that I always wish that I had. Like, I follow these people on Instagram that, you know, sit and watch horror movies all day, and like part of me loves that idea. There's another part of me that has this insane drive to be productive. And I can't, like, it's really hard for me to sit and watch movies all day unless for some reason, like when I got COVID, I had nothing I could do. I had to be bedridden, so I just sat and watched horror movies all day, and it was great. But I love that, like, even if like I didn't have like a list of things in my mind that I had to do, I don't know if I would have like the diligence to go from one movie to the next. So that's honestly, like, as a cinephile, to some degree, I don't know if I really earned that right to call myself that, but you certainly are. I admire your ability to be able to you know, watch a whole bunch of stuff and see a whole bunch of stuff, to see how all the different movies and everything. It's great.
I still have stacks of movies that I haven't watched yet. I bought, or like someone lent me, and they're like, yeah, watch this movie. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And it'll sit on my desk for like a year or something.
We're all guilty of that.
But it's like I have to be in the mood for it. And like when I'm in the mood for it, I take advantage of that and I just roll with it. It's kind of like a double-edged sword though, because, you know, if you're watching like 15 movies in a row, it's like there's some that you just kind of in one ear out the other.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, I did watch that movie. Yeah. Like, oh, I guess it wasn't that important, but there are some that are in there that leave a pretty lasting impression on you. But yeah, Christmas movies. I haven't seen that many. Holiday movies are not something I really watch much. But you know, now I've got
a couple under
6
your belt.
under my belt.
Yeah.
For Christmas. Yeah.
Well, we just because it's tradition. We watch all of our favorite Christmas movies and all of our favorite Christmas horror movies. Something that I only recently started doing. There was a time when I was, you know, I don't know what was going on in my brain, but I would, you know, watch as many horror movies as I could pack into Halloween season. I mean, watch as many as I, like, go through them all if I could. And by the time I was done, I was like, all right, I need a palate cleanser. Let's watch anything but horror movies, because that's all I've been doing. So come Christmas time, I just wouldn't watch any horror movies.
Yeah.
And that changed for me one year. I think it was 2015, if I remember right. I found out about a movie called Black Christmas. And after I saw that, that was a game changer for me. I was like, oh, I want to watch all these Christmas themed horror movies, because Black Christmas, in my personal opinion, is the best slasher movie of all time, and I would rank it above even Halloween. I think it is a perfect film from start to finish. Now that I've said that, what do you think about it?
Well, I knew you liked it a lot because you had done a review on it a few years back.
I did my IMDb trivia.
Trivia.
check.
That's right. Yeah. So I had seen that, and you know, Black Christmas would pop up every once in a while. You would talk about it, and I'm like, okay, I gotta watch this movie eventually. And I was actually gonna watch it as part of my 30 movie review for October, but I had gotten through a couple of movies from like the 1970s and the early 1980s, and I had noticed that a lot of them, like with, there's like a certain look to them that they have, and there are most of those films that they would either just like end, or they would have this shock twist ending that's just like, well, why is that there? Yeah. Like, I think it was specifically, I think it was The Hills Have Eyes and Sleepaway Camp. I know that was like 83 or something, but it was like, it felt very 70s to me.
Yeah.
And like The Hills Have Eyes, it's just like, okay, we killed them all, the credits roll, you know? It's like, wait.
Hard cut, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, it was a little jarring. And then like Sleepaway Camp, I was like, okay, this is, I'm digging this. I'm digging this. And then it's like, oh, the girl has a dick. and it's like, wait, what? I'm like, wait, why? I'm like, you could have, I don't know why that needed to be there. And I was like, so like those movies, I was just like, okay, I'm maybe not going to watch another movie from the 70s. And I hadn't watched Black Christmas at that point. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to kind of kick this off. Maybe I'll do it for a Christmas review or something like that. And then when he finally asked me to watch it, I was like, all right, here we go. But yeah, it was good. I liked it. I liked the whole vibe of it. And then like towards the end, when they had finally said, it's the boyfriend, I was like, yeah, it's not going to be the boyfriend. I'm like, I wonder who it is. And then when he dies and then like they all start leaving a room, and I'm like, oh, like the phone's going to ring, or you're going to hear the heavy breathing or something. And then it just goes up to the attic and you hear the phone ring, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, she's dead. For sure. Because like he would always call after he like killed someone. I'm like, okay, that's the key. But yeah, it was good. I liked it. And that's the kind of, like, they don't give you the answer. It's kind of like, it's not the ending that I was used to for movies from that era.
No.
But I liked it a lot, for sure.
It's almost the complete opposite of both those endings that you were talking about. It's not a hard, like, cut to credits, like, we killed all the bad guys, and then that, like, you know, there's no epilogue, so to speak. It just goes to credits, and it's not the insane twist.
Yeah, that is just kind of like,
it's just this soft, quiet pull away from the house, and you're watching the ending, and when everyone's like in the room, you're like, it doesn't feel right. That can't be right. And then they pull away from the house, and the phone starts to ring, and you're just like, fuck. Yeah. And you just know. It's a little bit more definitive than John Carpenter's The Thing. The ending that is, I would say, more open-ended, but it does kind of leave you with that same, like, shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Because still, it's like, you don't know which of them is the thing, but either way, they're both fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, but no, it was good. And just like, you could even see like a lot of the shots too had inspired films later on stuff with the, you know, the POV killer kind of thing. And, but yeah, I liked it.
I like the thing that I like about that movie is that even with the tone of the film and it being as bleak as it is, even for horror movies of like today's standards, like that's just a dark, grim movie. It still is very Christmassy, you know. Like it has, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just obviously it's Black Christmas, but like the vibe of it, like you would think with it being that bleak, you're like, oh man, this doesn't feel like Christmas at all. If it's still very like has that holiday,
has just a vibe to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And that is one of the reasons that I personally like going back to that one, because it's a masterclass in slasher filmmaking. Really at the start of it, I think, you know, there had been some stuff that had been done in, you know, Italian horror films that Bob Clark, the director of Black Christmas, I think he got some inspiration from some of that. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I believe Bay of Blood, which I believe is a 70s, early 70s film, was the first film to put the audience in the killer's POV. So you get a little bit of that, inspiration from like Italian giallo films, but Halloween was originally conceived as a sequel to Black Christmas. With, I think it might have been conceived as more of like a spiritual sort of sequel, but the idea of like the holiday thing and everything like that.
Oh, yeah, I do remember you mentioning that in the.
Yeah, I think that was like something that I read, and again, the idea behind my Black Christmas IMDb trivia check was that I thought that some of the trivia was true and some of the trivia was bullshit. And
because just anyone can.
Yeah, you can write whatever you want on there, and so I think that was one that I could go either way on, but I like the idea that those two films take place in the same universe for sure. Now, did you end up watching Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 1 or 2?
I could not find Part 1 anywhere
for
free, so I watched Part 2.
Yes.
I felt like it did a pretty good job at
You've seen Part 1.
Yeah.
You've seen that.
So even if because Shudder yesterday, they put up Part 3, 4, and 5.
Oh, they did?
And I was like, do they have Part 1 on here? And they didn't. And I was like, fuck. But I feel like even if it was, I wouldn't have watched Part 1 because, okay, the first half of Part 2, it's all there.
It's like, I watched Part 2 for the first time last year, and I think I, at this point, had only seen the first one once, maybe twice. I think it was only once. And I was sitting there watching Part 2, and I was like, did I put on the
Part 1
right movie? I am like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
Because it is 75% of that movie is a rehash of the first movie.
Yeah.
And the 25% that isn't is pure comedic gold as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, just
it's a weird movie.
it is. I really didn't know
weird.
how to feel about it once I had finished it. And I was like, okay, he's being interviewed. I don't know why he's being interviewed about his brother, but okay, we got this is making sense. So what does this guy do? What has he done? And then it cuts to garbage day, and then he just shoots it out. I'm like, okay, this is a little. I don't know what's going on here, but man, that was a cheesy as hell movie.
I after I got done watching it, I think I said garbage day. Any excuse I could find, I would just say
that's
it.
the one line he says multiple dumb lines, but that's the one that sticks out.
Just the insanity in the glee that he delivers it with is just unmatched. You know? Oh God, I had so much fun just being perplexed and confused as to like what was the motivation behind this screenplay, the making of the movie in general. Like
I was thinking, because he doesn't kill the nun in the first one. Like that was the thing. So they're like, well, people want a nun to die, so let's just, he had a brother, right? Let's just make him do it. But why? He was a kid. That doesn't matter. Just have him do it for some reason. And like throughout the movie, you're like, okay, so this stuff that happened when he was a baby made him be a killer. But I guess it kind of makes sense that the events of his brother is like what scarred him. But it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's kind of like a stretch a little bit.
Well, I mean, even the first movie isn't good. It's a 80s slasher film and like a B grade at best. Like it's not a good movie. It's fun. It's fun and it's silly and it's over the top. But I would still classify it as like, a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's blood, there's gore, and there's this character that, you know, watched his family be killed by a guy dressed as Santa, and he lost his mind because of it. And it does have a more tragic ending because he gets killed right in front of his baby brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this sequel that is absolutely preposterous in every single way, from the character development to the characters' choices and just the filmmakers' choices in general. Like,
yeah, like, how does he get out of the police station? Who's there at the police station? You know, that I was like, okay, they just had to get him out. They didn't know how to do it. That's why he's on the street now.
They had to have had the laziest, like, creative team behind that movie to just absolutely fill it with, like, what are we gonna do? I don't know. Let's just have them talk about the events of the first movie. Let's do that again.
Yeah. What about the ending? Just the last 20 minutes he gets out of jail and he just...
We need to have him kill people, right?
Yeah.
We watched Krampus last night.
You did?
Okay. Yeah.
The last time I saw that movie was when it came out in theaters. So that one I'll be a little bit rusty on.
What was your thoughts?
I saw it by myself in an empty theater. My wife won't go watch horror movies with me. She's a little more open now, but so yeah, I just, you know, I don't even remember. Did it come out around December? I think it did.
It might have been like late November, but it's right around
there. Yeah,
right
I just remember one night I had nothing to do. I was like, I'm just gonna go see this movie, and it was an empty theater, and I had so much fun with that movie. Just the opening scene with the doors opening, everyone rushing, getting all crazy. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a cheesy ass movie. I'm just gonna sit back and I'm gonna have fun with it. But like, I remember all the comedy being pretty good, and like all the effects too. Like I wasn't a fan of the gingerbread people, but I remember all of the other things I thought were pretty interesting around him, and then how it all just kind of built up to him towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
And like with the snow globe thing, I just thought all of that was really interesting, just seeing all that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, the gingerbread men just feel a little bit out of place, probably stylistically.
Yeah.
But just because everything else is so grotesque
Mm-hmm.
and grim, as far as, you know, the
Yeah,
toys and the elves are concerned, that
they're just too cutesy.
They seem like a little cartoony.
Yeah.
In comparison. Yeah.
But I feel like this came out in 2015.
I believe it came out in 2015. Yeah.
So I there was this craze, and I feel like it's still going, where like the Minions and like even Frozen with the little trolls, like every movie has to have its like little person.
Mm-hmm.
And that translates to kids movies a lot, but I feel like for this one it was like, okay, well, Christmas is kidsy, we got kids things, we gotta have cute little guys that they're cute and they murder. So maybe that's where it was, because it was in the middle of that army of tiny cute things.
Yeah. That makes sense. I could see that being a thing. Plus, I mean, you know, it's easier to merchandise, you know, cuter things, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The question, I feel like I pose it to my wife every single year, because I can never remember her answer. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I always, you know, I'm like drunk and I'm like, so do you think they're actually trapped in a snow globe, or that he's just keeping watch on them? What's your take on that? Do you think that they're actually trapped in some sort of limbo, or
that's interesting. No, I feel like they're trapped in there, because wasn't there like they wake up in the morning and like they open the windows and everything's like crazy still, or was it kind of calmer?
So the way it ends is he, you know, essentially tells Krampus, I want my family back, and then Krampus throws him into basically what is a pit of hell,
Uh-huh.
and then he wakes up and it's Christmas morning, kind of not unlike Ebenezer Scrooge.
Mm-hmm.
and he goes downstairs and everyone's there and it's a beautiful Christmas morning and
nice
very
Christmas,
calm, and then they're passing around presents and it's a very, very sweet moment. You're like, all right, cool, this is it. And then he opens up a present and it's the Krampus ornament.
Yeah, and then like I remember like everybody looks around.
They just kind of look around and they don't feel right, and then it pulls back and then it pulls out of the house, and then they're in the snow globe, and it's a whole bunch of snow globes in, you know, this basement looking thing that, you know, Krampus keeps all of, you know, the snow globes in.
Okay.
See, my personal take is that, you know, I wouldn't be surprised either way. My personal take is a little bit more hopeful, just because that ending is so hopeful that I'm like,
yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of them. I don't think that it's a whole bunch of people trapped in limbo. I think it's all these people that have, you know, fucked up, that have lost the Christmas spirit, that he inspires to, you know, keep the Christmas spirit, and the snow globe is his way of checking in and making sure that people are...
that makes sense. That I like that. And I feel like that, you know, they didn't even remember anything, but like that the bell is
something
like,
is not right.
They were like, maybe that wasn't a dream or something, but
yeah,
I didn't even think about that. I thought it was like, oh, okay, they're just trapped in there now. That okay, cool. And then the credits roll, or the jump scare, and then the credits roll, and then
you're out. Toys.
Yeah. And I never thought that they were just being watched on.
Well,
I guess that is a little.
I feel like it pulls in. I feel like that ties into the you know, Krampus is the anti Santa Claus.
And
you
Santa's always
watching. Yeah. So
okay.
that's my take on that. And again, it's a little bit, you know, where I'm usually pessimistic with these things. My take on that is it's a little bit more hopeful, in that, you know, they learned their lesson, and, you know, you just better watch out, sort of a deal.
I like that.
Which you actually watched. You watched Better Watch Out too, right? That was something that you...
Did you see that?
I did see that.
Okay.
I watched that one, and that's one that I think that was me and my Christmas horror movie craze. I knew nothing about the movie. And it came out about the same time as I think it's the McG movie, The Babysitter. I don't know if you saw that one on Netflix.
Okay.
And it came out roughly about the same time of it, so I was like, oh, those are like the same type of movie. The kid's got the hots for his babysitter, sort of a deal, and you know, one's the babysitter turns evil, and this one, again, knew nothing about it, but the kid is the one who turns evil.
Yeah.
What it's, you know, essentially a Home Alone on, you know, acid, I think, you know.
Yeah, so that one, to me, I don't know, it just looked like the little poster that they had on Shudder looked interesting to me, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to watch that. Because I remember it was that one, and then it was like, they had, I think it was like 3 horror Christmas movies that came out around the same year. Like 2019 or 2018. It was like, I think there was a remake of Black Christmas. There was another one that was a Christmassy one with chicks, and then there was that one. And I thought Better Watch Out was the other Christmassy one with chicks that wasn't the remake of Black Christmas, but it wasn't. And it was I was trying to, while I was watching it, figure out what was Christmassy about it. And I was like, okay, well, this could be set at any time, but there's just Christmas decorations around. Okay. And then they got to the Home Alone conversation about the paint can, and I'm like, that's where the writers were like talking. It was just probably like 2 friends. They were like, hey, so what do you think would happen with that? They're like, I don't know, let's make a script around it. It's like these 2 kids, they're talking about it, and then they just built the whole movie around it. I feel like that's the only thing that makes it Christmassy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like this. I don't really know how I felt about it. I thought everything like lined up for him a little too weirdly, and I was like, I don't.
Well, know. Yeah, I get that too. Like, I'll tell you right now, like, I like the movie. I agree with that 100%. And I mean, there's that in a number of different movies. Gosh, there was something else recently. It was like, well, how could that person have planned on that happening and guaranteed that would happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my suspension of disbelief, particularly when it comes to horror movies, like is, I just let it go because I'm there to have fun.
Yeah.
It's a silly movie. I like it. It's festive and fun, and I think that everyone who's in it is doing good. But it's I can't defend it against any of the criticism. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I'm very pick and choose with which movies I'll let certain things slide and which movies I won't. But that one, I was like trying to figure out all of these different things, and I was like, wait, there was too many like little hoops, and then the cliffhanger ending, I just was like, okay, when are they gonna make a second one? Is there gonna like an end credit scene where there's he gets arrested or something, and then it was just like, can we go to the hospital? And I'm like, okay, there's gonna be a second one, but I'm not gonna like how.
Yeah,
I wait for that.
There still hasn't been. It came out a few years ago, and there still hasn't been a second one. And it's just when it's a kid like that, you're like, this is unbelievable. But again, so is Home Alone.
Yeah, and even more so too.
Yeah,
you're left alone twice.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why I think they changed the kid in the third one. It's like, okay, this family can't do it a third time.
Yeah, no. I am partial to Home Alone 2 because essentially it is the exact same movie, except the setting is changed to a grandiose hotel where he has free reign to go to the Christmas toy store to rent out the penthouse suite. They end up having Christmas morning there, and I'm like, as a kid, like the kid in me was like, that'd be a fucking dope Christmas, man. I want to fucking do that shit. So to me, that's like that's my preference. Plus, Home Alone 2 has Tim Curry in it, and Tim Curry is he's the best. So
yeah, you're gonna hate me, but I still haven't seen Home Alone 2. I know like a little bit of here and there, and I own it, but I still haven't seen it.
It is 100% to the T, just the exact same plot with the exact same beats. I encourage you to watch it because you'll be like, it can't be exact. It is exactly. And I want you to watch it and just be like, oh yeah, no, they did every single thing the same. They just made it bigger. That's all it is. But it's fun. Some of the traps are even more bizarre. Just like that would murder someone. Okay. This person would be murdered. It's one thing to trip on cars and have like even the paint can, like that's up for debate. The shit that they go through in the second one, they would not survive.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
I remember seeing a video because I guess the kid, I can never say
Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, he was in a horror movie like a year or so after that, and they cut together like a Home Alone 3 or something with that horror movie and like the Christmas stuff, and they're like, this is what happened later on. He got the taste for blood or something like that.
It's called The Good Son, and Elijah Wood is in it too, if I remember correctly. It's great. Also takes place at wintertime. Deals with this young kid that manages to get away with a hell of a lot more than he should. The good son is like, he is a sociopath, a psychopath probably, and it's a kind of a cheesy film, to be sure, like a cheesy 90s thriller, but at the same time does pose this interesting question of what do you do when your kid is clearly insane and is trying to hurt people. So it's a funny conundrum, and the ending, the way it ends, I'm not entirely sure that is what would happen in real life. But it definitely is and there are fan theories that that's basically what happened to Kevin McAllister is that he just he ended up becoming this insane kid, which is I think is great. What other Christmas movies did I have you watch? What else was there?
You had me watch A Christmas Horror Story.
Oh yes. Now that is a personal favorite of mine and Celeste. I'll buy it. Cheesy, very cheesy in a lot of ways, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of fun to be had in that movie, and it's just chock full of the Christmas spirit, and it's got William Shatner doing some good William Shatner stuff.
Yeah, it gave me like Trick or Treat vibes, the anthology set on a holiday, and I really think that works for holiday stuff. It's just like multiple stories happening at once, and because I feel like even a lot of like Christmassy type specials that you'll see on TV, it's like multiple things going on at once. You have multiple different people encountering the Christmas spirit in different ways, and I just feel like that's a good format for holiday movies. Like at first I thought all these stories are gonna like they're all the same thing. I didn't know it was an anthology, so I was like, oh, this is all the same thing. Wait, this isn't, they're not tying in yet. This is starting to be about a different thing. This is about are these going to come back? And they never really tied into each other. So there were a few I liked and there were a few I didn't. Like the Santa Claus one, I didn't really care for that at first. I was like, okay, this is really cheesy. I'm like, I know it's Krampus, but Krampus is in this other story here. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. But then the ending.
The payoff to that one is, for me, what made the movie.
Exactly. Like the whole rest, I was like, the movie's fine. I'm like, it's okay. Like it's not doing much for me. But then when that twist ending happened, like I kind of had a thought in the beginning when he's like, he puts the note up and he says, "For Christmas."
Yeah.
And I was like, is that the same guy? He's kind of got like the same face going on there. I'm like, oh, maybe it's Santa after he's done dealing with whatever he's dealing with at the North Pole or something. I don't know. And then when he realizes that it's like, or when you realize it's the guy and he's just murdering the whole mall, that was a good payoff. And I thought, okay, Krampus isn't there.
Yeah,
that's fun. Yeah.
I thought the stories themselves, again, so that was a movie I watched on a whim by myself one year, and then I think I had my wife watch it, and my wife just loved it, absolutely adored it, and so she bought it, and now it's part of our movie collection. My take when I first watched it was that the stories themselves were either not Christmassy enough, the thing that happens in the insane asylum or the school or wherever it is.
Yeah, it's just like a ghost
that
story.
was just like a very much like a ghost hunters sort of vibe thing. And I was like, whatever. The Krampus one I thought was pretty fun. The Gremlin Changeling one, there you go. That one I was, not too big a fan of, just because I didn't particularly think any of the characters were likable, but I watched it, and then again we get to the ending, and I was like, fuck, what the shit. I was like, that's great. I was like, that did it for me. Like that made everything else like. And then every year that we watch it now, like I'm like I get a little bit more enjoyment out of those little stories and everything, because now it's become like a fun thing.
I can see that. Like as a first view, you like I said, like I didn't know it was an anthology, so I was just like trying to figure out how everything tied together. So I feel like on a second watch, now that I know, I'll have like a little more appreciation for things. But yeah, that I will say that ending like did it for me for sure.
It's also like one of those things where like Santa's warehouse, like you could tell that they just shot it in like wherever, like
whatever warehouse
they could find, and how they went with a more like realistic approach of making it almost like a giant post office sort of a deal.
Yeah.
You know, I go back and forth on that, where I'm like, oh, you know, I can see what they're doing here and the restraints that they use, but at the same time, it's unique because you haven't really seen a North Pole like that, and I think it plays well to the story that they're telling, with, you know, Santa just having to go around killing all these zombie elves, you know, which is pretty fun. And, you know, when I see, like, those budgetary constraints and how people are, like, the creativity that they can muster around that to make it work to their benefit, and even if I'm aware that that's what those constraints are, I think of it, you know, from perspective like you or me, who works within those constraints and is aware of how hard it is to do a project with little to no money. And I go, fuck, man, I would absolutely kill to just have a warehouse like that and make it work to my benefit. So I see stuff like that, and, like, it makes me appreciate the work that went into it even more.
Yeah.
Oh, you were gonna say something? I have something to say.
Well, actually, I was gonna build on that and go not Christmassy, but I don't know if we want to stick.
It doesn't. No, we
okay.
We can jump around, please.
There was a movie that I hated, but I very much respect what they did. I don't know if you ever saw, or if you're even a fan of, like, the found footage movies.
I depends on the found footage movie, but yes.
There was a one called Unfriended that was all from a computer screen and a Skype thing. It was like an MTV movie or something like that. But I was like, that is so interesting to me. I'm going to go watch it. And I regretted every penny that I put into it. But the way that they made it, with, like, literally no money, they were just like, okay, here's a house. We're going to put each actor in a different room in the house. That's why, like, one kid's in the laundry room, one kid's in the bathroom. And then it's like, okay, that's our setup. We're going to hook up on Skype and we're going to do the movie. And I think they did 3 takes. And by the second take, the actors were like, yeah, we can't flow with, like, multiple cuts. Let's just try it all start to finish. And so the entire movie that you see is all one take. Like, there's no cuts, there's no different takes. It's just, like, start to finish. They just went through the whole movie with their lines and stuff, and it's all in one house. And I don't think they paid that much to make it, but it was like, I fucking hate that movie because the movie sucked. But damn if the production wasn't great, and I love how they just literally whipped all that together. Because, I mean, like, yeah, you're questioning, why the hell is that girl in the laundry room? But then at the end, you're like, okay, they all filmed it in one house. That's creative. Why buy multiple houses to do that? Although, now that I'm thinking about it, why wouldn't you just have the actors do it from their own room at their own places and just film on Skype?
I watched the movie. I begrudgingly watched the movie because it was something that I think at the time I was like, that is stupid, and I don't want to watch it. And I had a buddy of mine give it to me for free. And I was like, fuck it, I'll watch it. And I watched it because I was so angry about watching it. I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
So I watched it like
we went on
hating it. Yeah, I went in hating it. It was like, that was actually kind of cool. Like, you know, again, like, the story's nothing amazing.
Yeah,
but the way the setup and how it plays out is very good.
And it was like the first movie that ever did it from, like, the computer screen. So the risks that they were taking to go with that, and, like, the next step in the found footage genre, I think really was interesting, and I liked the risks that they took with it.
Yeah, I think it was gotten decent ratings too. That was the thing. That was the other thing that kind of piqued my interest about it. I was like, well, it wasn't like a Rotten Tomatoes score. It was a decent, like, score. I think it was like in, like, the 60s or something like that. And I'm like, I thought it was going to be like 3%. So that's worth, you know, if a horror movie that comes out in this day and age does not get a rotten score, that piques my interest, because I'm like, all right, cool, they must have done something
right, yeah,
different, something that, you know, made people, like, made critics, which, you know, fuck them a lot of the time, but if they rank a horror movie good, there must be something interesting happening in that horror movie, because these critics are fucking snobs when it comes to horror movies. So
yeah,
when they give it a good rating, I'm interested to see what's going on with that. I did not know that they filmed it all in one take in one house. That I had no idea about, and that is insanely impressive to me.
Right. Yeah, like I remember I was just so upset about like how the film ended. I was just like, I just did all this research on it, and I learned all this stuff, and I was like, yeah, so I love it for that, but I hate it because, yeah.
Do you have any movies, horror or not, that like the general consensus is this is a great movie, but you're just like, no, I don't like that movie? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. A lot of movies by Martin Scorsese.
Oh no!
I think one that I bash on a lot is Goodfellas, to be honest with you. And I know everybody who likes that movie is probably like, fuck this guy. But I just didn't care for Ray Liotta. I feel like, I remember like I was taking a film class in high school, and my teacher showed us the scene where they're at the bar and Joe Pesci is telling a story, and then he gets all upset at Ray Liotta, and like it looks like he's gonna kill him or something, and then everybody starts laughing. It's like this buildup of tension and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, that's a cool scene. I want to watch this movie now. So like I just bought all these mafia films and I watched them one by one. And then when I got to Goodfellas, I realized that kid was the main character, and I was like, oh. And just like his laugh throughout the whole film, and like just the way he acts like throughout it, I'm like, man, Joe Pesci and fuck, why can't I think of his name?
Ray Liotta?
Robert
De Niro?
Robert De Niro. I was like, why did I just got Ray Romano in my head. I was like, that's not his name. Yeah, like they're great in the movie. Everyone else is great. The whole story is great, but then it's just, I feel like whenever Ray Liotta comes on screen, my like for it just goes down. And then I started noticing, like, Martin Scorsese has a way with like repeating his
filmography.
Yeah, it always starts out with the narration. After the fact of the story goes, it like has the same beats to it, every single one. And I mean, like, I guess if you find something that works, make it work, sure. And I'm not gonna say that all of his movies are bad. Like, there's some good ones, but like Goodfellas and like The Irishman particularly, I didn't care for. And then Martin Scorsese started to come out and say like all these other things against other directors, and like, for example, the whole Marvel movie thing. He's like, all the Marvel movies are the same. Da, da, da. I'm like, but you make the same movie all the time. I'm like, what are you talking about? So like, I don't know. I feel like once a director starts to attack other films and other filmmakers that are coming in, like my respect for them goes down, whether or not they were legends. Like I feel like even Ridley Scott, I have a huge problem with Ridley Scott, and because
he likes to talk a lot of trash.
He does. Like, do you know about Alien 5? The Neil Blomkamp one?
Yeah, that I don't remember why it didn't go through, but I remember being heartbroken because I thought it was going to be amazing.
Okay, do you want me to tell you?
Yes.
Okay, because this is why I don't like Ridley Scott. Okay, so Ridley Scott was doing Prometheus.
Yes.
Okay, the original layout for Prometheus was supposed to be 1, 2, and 3. It was supposed to tell you about the ship that they go and find, and it was supposed to tell you the origin of the xenomorphs, and the xenomorphs weren't supposed to show up until the end of the third film. It was supposed to be like the credit closer or whatever. And it wasn't supposed to be called Alien. It was just supposed to be like Prometheus 1, 2, and 3, or like each one was supposed to have a different title. But when Fox gave Neil Blomkamp Alien 5, and which by the way, I love Neil Blomkamp, except for Elysium, because I don't care for Matt Damon. Other people are going to kill me for that. But I love Chappie and I love District 9, and I know what this guy can do. And I thought the way he makes films is perfect for the Alien franchise. So when he started releasing concept art and said, hey, it's going to pick up from where Aliens left off. It's got Sigourney Weaver. It's got
Michael Biehn.
Yeah, it's got everybody in it. It's even got Newt, but she's all grown up, and it's got the robot guy. It's got everybody, you know. And these are some concept art photos that I drew up. You know, it looked great. I was hyped for it. Well, here comes Ridley Scott saying, "Yeah, I don't want Alien 5 to come out until after Prometheus is done. We got 2 more movies." And then Fox is like, okay, I guess that's reasonable. We'll give you that. And then he's like, okay, now that you gave me that, Prometheus is now going to be a 7-movie series, and we're changing the title of the next one to Alien Covenant. So he just totally tossed out the next 2 movies, rewrote something to make it longer, to eventually kill Alien 5, and then he changed the name of his next movie to Alien to confuse people into thinking this is the next Alien movie. It has nothing to do with Prometheus, which worked, because Alien 5 died like really quickly after that. So,
yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. So I just don't like Ridley Scott, and every time he opens his mouth and says shit like what he said last week, like nobody watched his new movie because the damn kids on their cell phones. I'm like, nobody heard about your fucking movie, so...
House of Gucci.
Oh, no, it was
The Last Duel.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta tell you this. You gotta give that man credit. He turned 84, I think it was yesterday or something like that, and the man managed to direct 2 movies in a year. So, I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
He's not the type of person I would ever want to get on his bad side.
Yeah.
To probably, slash the tires. But
he did do the first Alien. So.
Yeah. And he did Blade Runner and Gladiator, and has made some of the most iconic films in history. But when people get old, they lose it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Martin Scorsese. Like, I agree with you 100% on all of that trash talk. Like, dude, just be the bigger man. Don't say anything, man.
Yeah.
Even like my hero, Steven Spielberg, when he was like trying to push back on like Netflix and all that, I'm like, dude, let people watch movies how they want to watch them.
Yeah.
I admire the theater experience so much. It's great, but particularly after everything that happened with COVID, we've seen that there are other ways for people to watch movies, ways that are more convenient. Hell, it's been great for me and my family because with things like HBO Max, they're releasing these movies the same day of, and I can watch it essentially not for free. I pay a subscription, but I can watch it in my house, and I don't have to try and worry about finding a babysitter or anything like that. And I can watch these massive tentpole movies from my house, and I think that anybody who's trying to talk shit about the way movies are watched or not make it available to people, I think is insane. We need to grow. We need to move forward,
Yeah, and I feel like having all these streaming services opens up more production houses and opens up more risks to be taken by filmmakers, and the studios are more willing to give these new directors those leeways. And I feel like you get a lot more, you're going to get a lot more shit, but you're also going to get a lot more hidden gems in there where that will eventually grow to the next generation of huge directors,
Yes.
And I agree with you. Yeah, I was pretty upset about those statements too. But like, I mean, Spielberg was the guy who like ran my childhood essentially with all of his movies and all the movies that he produced. And like Jurassic Park is the movie that made me want to make films. So like I still have respect for him. But yeah, I do agree. Like once you get to a certain point, I feel like you have to take a step back and look at everything and see how film is evolving. And I mean, yeah, you just have to, I guess, accept it. Because like once everybody got a hold of a camera, I mean, I can film a movie on my phone.
Yep.
So it's like, gotta embrace the future, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, don't please by no means get me wrong. Steven Spielberg is my hero and will be till the day I die.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. Yeah.
The man, when you say that he, you know, like ran your childhood, same.
Yeah.
Same. I like he is, just like, for all intents and purposes, like a god. He's like something to strive towards. He is
cinema.
Yeah, and that's why, like, 99.9% of the time, he seems to be the absolute like pristine Hollywood gentleman and has nothing bad to say about anybody. That's why when like that came out, I was like, that's a little heartbreaking. Just don't do it, man, because again, what you're saying and what I'm saying as two people who enjoy being creative in that realm, it does open up a lot more doors for people like us or people who have better contacts than us, I suppose is probably a good way to put it. People who know people, but still that idea that like there are people that like started out on YouTube that are now in fucking movies. Like, did you ever remember like the German guy who was like, what's this fish in a barrel? Do you do this fish in a... I don't know if you ever saw that. This is a guy on YouTube. He's a German guy that would just like make fun of like American expressions and stuff like that. And then he ended up being in like a Pitch Perfect movie and then had a couple other different movies that he was in. And you're like, that was just a fucking guy talking on YouTube. And now he's in...
Yeah,
madness.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you feel good because it's like, yeah, normal people, and then you're like, fuck this person though. Why that person? Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, I could talk all day about how depressing it is to really put your heart and soul out in the world and then have the world not give two shits about it. But you know,
yeah. This ain't that kind of podcast.
We're not going that dark today. Yeah. But how about we take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some fucking Jurassic Park. How about that?
Oh, man. This is going to be a long night.
We're back. Oi. So you're wearing a Jurassic Park the Ride shirt.
Yes.
Do you miss Jurassic Park the Ride? Have you been on Jurassic World the Ride yet?
I have not. I've heard the updates that they've done to it. I haven't watched like a full thing because I want to like go on it. I was going to go the day that they opened the ride, but because I went on the last day that this was open, and I rode it like 5 times with my wife, and
that's great.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, it has life finds a way.
Hey,
and I was gonna go the opening day of Jurassic World, but they had just rose the ticket prices, and it was the same price as Disneyland.
Holy shit!
And I was like,
holy shit.
Yeah, I said that exact thing. I'm like, I'm not going to go to Universal Studios for like 5 rides. So we just ended up going to Disneyland.
Yeah,
you know? I was like, all right.
It's a better play. Like, Universal Studios for me is what Disneyland is for my wife. Like, she can go to Disneyland and not ride one single ride, and she's just happy to be there.
Yeah.
I feel very much the same way about Universal Studios because it's got Jaws, it's got Jurassic Park. You can actually drink in the theme park, so I usually get myself like a tall can of like Corona or something like that, and just walk around the park like a doe-eyed kid, just in love with everything that I see.
Yeah, but anyways, to answer your question, no, I haven't seen the new ride. I did see the one that they did in Hong Kong, which has like a really impressive Indominus Rex animatronic that actually chases the car around.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. I don't know if it's like a big crane thing, but it's essentially the entire dinosaur that just comes and chases you around corners and shit. I would recommend it. I think it's the Japan one or the Hong Kong. I'm not sure. Somewhere over there. But I am going into a different rabbit hole. Back to Universal Studios. I grew up with Universal Studios. I used to go with... I went a couple of times with my uncle, and I remember riding the old E.T. ride back when it was... before it was The Mummy, Back to the Future, Terminator. So I'm like very much one of those people who's like a purist of rides and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when they got rid of all those... Yeah, I like the rides. I like The Mummy, for sure. I thought that was an okay thing to replace, but like The Simpsons, I'm like, it's just not Back to the Future. They make a nice nod to it when you're waiting in the line, but like the Minions being...
Oh my god, we talked about that just recently. Celeste is just like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. Terminator was perfect.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing. I think I might have dreamed this. It might have been a nightmare, but I feel like it's legit because of how they do things there.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're getting rid of the Mummy, and I think they're putting something else in.
Oh, serious?
And I'm sure it's going to be like a kiddie thing. I could very well be wrong about that, but I think that's what I heard. And that's the thing that breaks my heart is they're getting rid of all this cool stuff, just fill it with illumination, animation shit. And
I did hear a rumor though. Although man. I got 3 different directions I can go right now. But anyhow, first thing, Universal has tried so many times to get their Darkverse going. It's kind of sad at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen The Invisible Man, the one that they did recently, but I have heard a thing that they are going to do another Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser.
Oh, yeah. See, I haven't heard, but he's having himself a little bit of a renaissance right now.
Yeah,
so.
and I'm happy for the guy because after Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, nothing went good for that guy for a long time.
Yeah.
But like in my head, thinking about the Universal Darkverse and how they could revamp it, I just go to like the original like 1930s Mummy movie or like the books of like Frankenstein and stuff, and I'm like, why don't we start there and just do like an old classic period piece, and then why don't we just tie it into the Mummyverse? But
yeah,
I don't know about you, but the Mummy movies.
The Mummy is right up there for me with Jurassic Park, where I could have watched the entire film the day before. If it's on TV, I'm going to put it on.
Watch it again,
I don't care where it is in the film, what's going on.
I
fucking love The Mummy so much. And I love it the more I watch it. The more I watch it, I'm just like enamored with it. I'm like, this is as good as an Indiana Jones film to me. Yeah. I have just as much fun watching it, and they're a blast, man. I have the whole collection, and it's got the Scorpion King, and it's got the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, which I have not watched since that one fateful midnight showing.
I actually watched it once last year.
Yeah.
I watched the Mummy series like I think once a year or something like that, and I had finally gotten my wife to agree to watch it. and we watched 1 and 2, and I'm like, you probably don't want to watch 3. And she's like, well, let's go do it. And we went to Sulzer's, R.I.P. And we rented it, watched it. She fell asleep through it, and I was like, man, this is worse than what I remembered.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, unfortunately, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull had very negative reviews. But if you go back and you watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which we did right after Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, you can see that it has the grounds to be a really good movie, but there are like a handful of things that just really bring it down, like the refrigerator, which of course is a nod to the original concept of Back to the Future, or the monkeys or the ants or the aliens at the end, which just kind of bring it down. But like, other than that, you have a really solid film there.
Well, the beginning of that movie is, with the exception of the magnetic shit that is very selective about what it wants to magnetize.
Yeah.
Everything that happens in the Area 51 warehouse, I think, is genius. What a genius way to set up your movie, where you ended that with that iconic shot at the end of Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. But unfortunately, I don't think anybody involved in that movie had their head on right while making it. I think I'm sure there was good intentions, but it wasn't right. I have really high hopes for this new one, because I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last time Harrison Ford gets to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's got much more left in him. And while I was kind of bummed that Spielberg wasn't involved in the beginning, I think him not being involved is probably the best thing for that movie.
And also the director that replaced him
is the guy who did Wolverine.
Yeah.
And Walk the Line. And fucking Ferrari versus Ford.
So he knows how to play a story.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He knows how to make a good movie.
Yeah.
And then you put Indiana Jones on top of that, and you're ready to roll, you know?
So, fingers crossed. Because that comes out June of next year?
I think they bumped it back to 2023. I
Did
think
they?
Disney did, yeah.
Oh.
They pushed a lot of their shit.
They gotta get on that, because Harrison Ford has been in like 4 or 5 plane crashes in the last couple of years. So,
they just need to take away his license.
Yeah.
Shouldn't there be, like, I mean, after you crash a car enough times, you don't need to drive anymore.
Yeah. Just like, I remember the first time he was in a plane crash. What is he okay? Oh, he crashed his own plane. Okay. And then the second time, it's like, didn't that happen a couple of months ago? And then the third time, we're like, all right, hold on a minute.
Like, who could say no to Harrison Ford, though?
Yeah.
I mean, no one could do that.
Yeah.
But I digress.
We went down.
We did, but that's great. That's good. Jurassic Park. So it sounds like your first time at Universal Studios was roughly the same time as my first time at Universal Studios. The first time I went was just after the ride had opened. I think it had been open for a few months. I was about 5 years old.
Oh, Jurassic Park?
Yeah,
oh,
so maybe it might have been a little bit. I just remember the ride was brand new. Even the first time I rode it, the T-Rex that pops up at the end when you go down the drop, he wasn't there yet.
Oh.
But I remember going, like, I rode E.T. and we rode Back to the Future and stuff like that, and then I didn't go for years after that, and then a lot of that stuff was gone. But I remember Jurassic Park the ride being like, we rode it twice.
Yeah.
Like, that was the first thing we hit, and it was the last thing we hit.
Yeah, I still have a picture in like the gate, Jurassic Park gate frame with me and my uncle, and that was the first time I had gone to Universal Studios, and it was going down where they take the picture right under the T-Rex. And yeah, I remember just lifting up, and ever since then, every time I go to Universal Studios, like, I hate that feeling. So it's like, I don't know if I'm going to ride Jurassic Park this time. Like, I really want to, but I just don't like that feeling, so I don't think I'm gonna do it. Or people talk me on it or stuff like that. But yeah, I have very fond memories of Universal Studios, and I feel like we were talking about it, now it's just so expensive that like actually a couple of years ago I had a year pass to Disneyland, so we would just go all the time. And with Disney Plus, they have all those like documentaries and stuff. Like actually over the past couple of weeks, me and my baby, I was like, okay, maybe you can't watch horror movies. I don't. So like we started going through the Disneyland documentaries and stuff like that. And now like I feel like I have more nostalgia for that park than I do Universal Studios. Like because all the rides that I knew at Universal Studios are kind of like they're gone.
They're gone, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean like even Jurassic Park, it's the same ride, but it's done up differently. And I mean I still haven't been on it, so how could I have a connection with this ride that I haven't ridden yet? So yeah,
I can understand that and I can respect that. I mean, I get pretty roughed up every time they change something there. Even when they, I've been saying for years to my wife that they needed to update Jurassic Park the ride, because some of those dinos were looking
like
rough.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the past couple of years before they did that, it's like
the car wouldn't draw.
Yeah, or the dinosaur wouldn't move, or like a dinosaur would just be missing.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, I was like, wait, wasn't there something there? And then, like, you would see it, and you would just see like going like that, and you're like, what is going? So yeah, I do agree that they needed an update.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they kept with the animatronics.
Yeah.
And that they just didn't screen everything.
Yeah.
Like I hear that when you first go into it, there's a screen with like the mosasaur and stuff like that, which is fine. Like that makes sense.
The way it's done is really cool, actually, because you just go in this big,
like
giant, like
thing, right?
aquarium sort of setup, and it plays very well, and it's super cool.
And how would you do that with an animatronic? Like have a little. It's like that's like
wouldn't nearly have the same sort of grandeur, if you will. But I really like it. Like, I mean, they didn't change it. Like, the ride is essentially still the same.
Yeah.
You're not getting
like I just hear it's like updated for Jurassic World, and then there's the T-Rex and Dominus at the end.
Yeah, which I mean, the way they update that sort of area when you're getting ready to go on the drop is by far like the coolest part of the ride to me, because they actually like doctored it up and made it look like a jungle in there, which is really cool. But it's
because water in this warehouse just didn't make much sense beforehand.
But, no. But tell me about. Sounds like again that you had a similar experience with Jurassic Park as I did as a youngster, and that it really shaped your love of film and filmmaking. So tell me about the first time you saw Jurassic Park.
Well, like I said, I watched a lot of movies when I was like 3, so I can't really
you don't remember.
But I remember watching the shit out of that movie, and I was already a kid that loved dinosaurs. I mean, like, I was kind of like a dinosaur snob as a kid. Mm-hmm. I kind of probably still am, but like whenever there was something wrong in a science class, I'd be like, yeah, well, there's this new fossil evidence that shows that actually this is what happened, or the dinosaur evolved this way, or actually that dinosaur is now not real. It's actually an amalgamation of this dinosaur this time. So I did that a lot. I hijacked a lot of science classes, and I even found like a mistake in a National Geographic book once that I wrote in for. But so obviously I was obsessed with dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And so I would watch that movie a lot, and I would always think like, well, is this possible? Like I always thought, like when I was a younger watching it, it's like these are real dinosaurs on the screen. I'm like, somehow they got these dinosaurs in a movie. I don't know how they made them just for the movie or whatever, and why they're not at zoos. But then at a certain point, I realized that it was just movie magic. And that was when I was like, okay, if people can make dinosaurs real, that's what I want to do. I want to make films so I can make something as compelling as that. And when I make a movie, maybe I can slip a couple dinosaurs in there and just make some badass shit. And I kind of held on to that, and I just went with these like two career paths of being a filmmaker, but if that didn't work, being like a paleontologist and stuff. So, I kept with the knowledge of dinosaurs, and just went from there. And I even remember like there was a point where I think it was like in high school where I realized I didn't want to be a paleontologist because it has a lot to do with rocks and geology and stuff. I don't know shit about rocks. I can tell you all about fucking dinosaurs, any kind of dinosaur. You could, Brachiosaurus, it lived during this time. I can tell you all about that stuff, the zoology of it, but the rocks and stuff I can't. So, fuck, I lost my train of thought.
So that's when you decided to become
filmmaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
this part out.
No, you're good. Okay. It's good. It's funny
I had
because
something I was going with, and I was like, "What the?" You get so focused in on it, and then it just blank stops.
I totally understand. Happens to me all the time.
But yeah, no.
I can give you a boost here, and maybe you can find your train of thought again. It's not totally unlike what I experienced as a child. Now, yeah. I had seen Jurassic Park, and I had this kind of a similar thing where, like, I knew it wasn't real, but I didn't understand how it wasn't real. And, like, my idea of movies is that it was happening, that it happened, and it was just caught on film, sort of a deal. That was, like, my understanding of movies. And that even went on as far as to and I even watched the making of, like, my dad showed me the making of Jurassic Park, which, like, again, was one of those things that, like, sticks in your brain when you're watching something and you're like, oh, that's cool, that's how they did that, that's interesting. Still too young to really process what all of that meant and how that all played. I always thought that the actors that died in movies were dead. Like, that was just like as a little kid, that's just how my brain processed stuff. I didn't understand it otherwise. So when I saw Jaws, I was, I think I was about 9 years old, 9 or 10. I think it was the year that I turned 10. And my dad showed me the making of Jaws before I actually saw the film Jaws. So a lot of the surprises and things were actually spoiled for me because I saw them all in the making of. But in watching the making of, I was so engaged and so curious and so excited about this movie that my dad was going to show me, and I was going to get to see how it all played out, and I got to see all the behind the scenes stuff, but my brain still didn't quite process, like, how things worked in movies and that these people were not really dying on film and stuff like that. But I remember watching it and being like, that's so cool. Like, I want to go find a shark like that, and I want to have an adventure like that. And like, I want to go do that. And then so I was like, well, naturally I got to become a marine biologist then, because, then I got to go find the shark. And then then something similar happened where it dawned on me. I was like, dude, I don't want to go fucking find sharks. I just want to make it look like I'm super badass and, in danger and not be eaten. I was like, oh, I want to make movies. That's what I want to do.
And it was that same thing. It was like, I don't want to deal with rocks, and I can't literally make dinosaurs. They have put out a lot of science behind that, the de-extinction thing. Actually, like a couple of years ago,
I heard about that. Some billionaire's trying to make his own Jurassic Park right now.
Yeah, it's all like Pleistocene era creatures like saber-tooth tiger and woolly mammoths and stuff like that. Stuff that doesn't have like the half-life of the DNA hasn't decayed that much. And people, I always get mad at people who are like, haven't you seen Jurassic Park? I'm like, no, Jurassic Park is because he didn't pay that guy enough. It's not about the dinosaurs, it's because he didn't pay him enough. I'm like, get the real gist of the story. I'm like, I just want to see a fucking woolly mammoth or a saber-tooth tiger. Like, give me something.
Yeah. That'd be dope, dude. The idea of a saber-tooth tiger, when you said that, like, I got excited. I was like, that'd be so badass.
Yeah, and they're just like a couple of years away from that, too. But, yeah, no, movies are easier. And then that's, like, I think, jumping from that, it's like, yeah, I can't make something as good as Jurassic Park. What's easy and what's cheap and I'm like, horror movies.
Horror movies. That's why a lot of people get started in horror movies.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, well, I enjoy horror movies. I enjoy a good horror movie, and then it's like, it just kind of went from there. And that's, it started my film thing, and then from there, it started my horror thing. So,
yeah. I find, like, personally, for me, like, there were a couple of moments in the last episode that we did in the Jony Horror Show. Johnny and Brian run the Inferno Marathon, where I actually, for the first time, legitimately got to do horror elements in the Jony Horror Show, because the Jony Horror Show, that name came from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is, it's more of an homage or, an appreciation for horror films sprinkled in throughout. So, there's these situations where we find and we deal with these characters or creatures and stuff like that are horror elements. It's not like a scary thing by any means. But in that episode, I got to take a stab at a couple of scenes with my sister going into the levels of hell, where she's walking around in my house and it's all dark in there, and there's a creature down at the bottom of the staircase, and that was like a legit fear I had at that house, living there for those years that I was there, that I would hear stuff down at the bottom of the staircase, and I was always afraid that I was going to come around to that staircase and see something in the shadows there. So I got to, like, try that and kind of mess around with that. And then there's the scene where she finds the witch down by the pond, and that was like more of a dream sequence, just to kind of like make you feel uncomfortable. But I got so nervous in trying to do those scenes, because I've seen all this selection of horror over the years, and I'm like, I think it's really hard to scare people now, and it's really hard to make something feel scary. So when it actually came time to actually do horror, I was like, dude, I don't want to do it. I don't know if I can do it to the point that I feel would actually be scary or unnerving, you know?
And I am in the same exact mindset, honestly. Right out of high school, me and my friend, we had done a small YouTube series called The Last Exorcism of Salvador. It was just something we filmed after work. It was supposed to be me walking around my friend's apartment as a ghost hunter or something. And it was like a found footage thing, and I was just supposed to point stuff out. But friends kept coming over randomly, because like this was just a place that they would all meet up. And they're like, well, do you want to be in this? Do you want to be in this? So it ended up being about this stoner guy, lives in an apartment, and stuff starts happening. And it's all linked around this Furby. Because, I mean, everybody's had a Furby, and everybody's been freaked out about a Furby. I mean, mine used to talk on its own without batteries and shit. It's like, okay, no, we're getting rid of that. But then, like, I just show up. Like, he doesn't call me or anything. I just walk in the house, and I'm like, okay, so here we are in the house of Salvador. We're gonna, and it's like, who are you? And it's like, what are you talking to? And it's like the camera is my TV show camera, but it's like not there. So I'm just talking to no one. And it goes through like all the beats of like an exorcism thing. Like, okay, we got to figure out what the ghost is. We got to figure this out. And it was just like, okay, what movies can we pull from? Insidious, Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch, The Exorcist. Okay, let's just pick some cool parts of that, and we'll like make a comedy homage to certain things. And then it just went from there. So like the second one, he gets sucked into the TV, and I have to go into the closet after him, and I call a psychic who has a really high pitched voice to help me into the other world. And then we go to hell, and it's like we're navigating this labyrinth, and it's like, okay, then I sacrifice myself to save his soul, and da 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 da. So it was like really similar. Like we had these different parts. And then I think we even had a prequel that had like Saw and a bunch of zombie movies. But it was like, we went through all these things. It was like, okay, this movie's going to be an homage to these few horror movies. But it was all comedy. And then I think really recently at the start of COVID, I had done like a few horror-ish short films, but they didn't really have much dialogue to them. It was just kind of like imagery and stuff like that. And it was like telling a story without giving too much. And at the beginning of COVID, I had this idea in my head that I wanted to go to Goodwill and buy a porcelain doll, and I just wanted to smash it. And I'm like, okay, that's my starting point. Okay, so then I bring home this doll. My wife doesn't like it. She says to get rid of it. I said, this is going to make us money. So I set it up. I set up the camera, but then I get too attached and I get possessed, and stuff starts happening around the apartment, and only she notices, okay, let's go from there. And then when I recorded these scenes, like I had set up the lights, I had done all the filters correctly, everything looked like a horror movie. But when I had finally edited it, I was only missing like one clip of me and her on a couch talking. And I was like, this really is kind of hard to do. Like because it's already so hard to scare me, so I feel like, how am I gonna know how to scare someone else if like I don't even know how to scare myself? So like I did work a lot with audio, trying to figure out certain noises that would freak people out and stuff like that, but that short film still hasn't come out. It's like been sitting there for almost 2 years, and it's just like, I'll get to it eventually. But it's because of that. It's like, I don't think this is actually scary, that I don't want to release it. So.
Yeah, I get that. I did one short, horror short before, and I was actually thinking about it the other night, and I was like, oh god, it's rough. We filmed it all in one night, which was impressive. And I mean, as far as the production itself is concerned, and the editing and the sound and the music and everything, I think that's all good, and the performances are good enough for, you know, a couple of kids right out of high school. It's not bad, but you know, the writing is shit, and I don't think my lead actors had a particular amount of chemistry together, but and even just so many fucking plot holes and loopholes that you're like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
You know, what I always say in my reviews, stupid horror movie people doing stupid horror movie people things.
Yeah.
Try to avoid that. But the thing that like I focused on personally when I was doing those scenes with my sister in the Jony Horror show was less scary, like, and more just, I don't like this.
Yeah.
You know, just that uncomfortable, like, this doesn't feel good. This is not a place I would want to find myself in.
Yeah.
More sort of dream-esque, like you have a nightmare and you're in the nightmare and you don't outright see anything that's scary. You just have this feeling that something is not right. And there might not be anything in that dream to scare you. You just don't feel good the entire time. And that was kind of the vibe that I try to go for with those scenes. And probably if I were to ever do like a legit horror thing, that would be what I would aim for, because to legitimately like put terror into people is I think it's a long game as opposed to, I don't think jump scares work particularly well. Every now and then, James Wan is a master of jump scares.
For sure.
Everything he did in Insidious and the Conjuring movies is just like, perfection. But before we wrap up, I wanted to bring it back to Jurassic Park and Christmas movies. I feel like there's a segue here that's going to work just fine.
Okay.
The newest Jurassic World movie. What are your thoughts on this? Are you excited? How did you feel about the last couple of movies? Here we go.
I'm actually going to tell you about my theater experience for Jurassic World.
Please.
Okay.
Please do.
So I saw Jurassic Park 3 as a little child in the theater. I think it was like 7.
Jurassic Park 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like 7 or 8 or something like that. And I remember being so hyped because I was like, this is a PG-13 movie, and somehow I got into it. I'm like, I don't know movie theater rules. And I remember after that, I was like, okay, when's the next one? And I had always latched onto that. And I remember that the internet, I had started using that a lot. And they started like these rumors and stuff, and these like leaked photos of like a script, and it had like the Jurassic Park logo, but it was a Dilophosaurus skull, and I was like, oh. And every time there would be something new out, there's a script coming, there's a production coming, and da-da-da-da. But it never came. And I remember sitting in a classroom in high school as like 2013 or something like that, as my senior year, and I remember that is when I first saw the article for Jurassic World. Hey, we have this script, it's happening in 2015, and I was like, holy fuck, it's finally here. So finally get to the movie. At this point, I'm working at a movie theater. I had all the posters because all the posters came through the theater. We even had this, like, as long as your garage door, this big cardboard thing with Chris Pratt with all the raptors and stuff. And I took a picture next to it on my bicycle. And I was like, dude, I'm so hyped for this. I bought my tickets. I went. And when the last scene where second to last scene where the T-Rex and the Indominus and Blue the Raptor are fighting, like my heart was just like going. And I hadn't felt such joy watching a movie since I was like a kid watching those movies. And I remember when the T-Rex came out and roared over the Jurassic World or whatever, like one singular manly tear came out and the credits started rolling. I was like, holy fuck, that was good. And I was totally fine with it. Even all the cheesy stuff, like her running in her heels and shit like that. Whatever. Each movie has their own little loophole. But I remember seeing that movie like 5 times in theaters, and then I went and saw it in 4D. And by that point, my wife had seen it with me so many times that she fell asleep in the 4D rocking chairs and put her to sleep. And so when Fallen Kingdom came out, I was super hyped to see another one because that Indoraptor really interested me. And that opening scene, I mean, you already know, that scene was like the best part of the movie.
That is easily, with the exception of the first Jurassic Park film, that scene is probably the best single scene in any Jurassic movie.
Right? And I was like, okay, all right, and here's where the Dilophosaurus comes in, and like, da-da-da-da. I'm like, if the rest of the movie is like this, that's going to be great. Mm-hmm. But then it wasn't. And it was like this whole other thing, and I was like, okay. And then once the Indoraptor came on screen, I remember really liking how that was. Just the design of it, how you could tell it wasn't as perfected as the Indominus Rex. How it was like twitching and stuff, and you could see like there were parts where the scales had fallen off. Mm-hmm. And like just the way it moved and the sounds it made, I was like, this, like, if they had gone more the route of like that opening scene and more horror, this dinosaur would easily top.
Yeah.
Like a lot of things. But I feel like, I mean, personally, I like the Indoraptor over the Indominus Rex just because of those design things. But I feel like the movie as a whole kind of brought it down.
There's the thing that, so I go back and forth with it, man. Like, for me, like, my ranking of Jurassic movies is the order that they are in. 100%. Because I am, like, I will never in a million years understand I mean, I guess I could really try and understand it. The hate for Lost World just being, well, it wasn't Jurassic Park and it had big shoes to fill and it just didn't fill them.
I love that movie.
That was my movie, dude.
Yeah.
That movie came out, like, because I had seen Jurassic Park, but Jurassic Park I saw, like, as, like, a 4-year-old or something like that. And then Lost World came out when I was, like, 6 or 7. So that was in a time when, like, I was like prime boy, you know, just like prime little boy. Like, dinosaurs in that movie was my movie because, like, I saw it and, like, everyone else was like, yeah, it's all right. And I was like, no, it's so cool. There's 2 T-Rexes.
Yeah. The dumb thing about, like, I just watched Jurassic Park over and over. And when Jurassic Park 3 came out, I hadn't seen Part 2 yet. Really? I didn't see it until afterwards because...
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how, but I remember not having seen it until after 3. And I was like, man, I love this movie. You get to see them in their natural habitats. And that's really cool.
Yeah, it's funny though, because like you, like, my first Jurassic Theater experience was 3.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see the first or second in theaters. I saw them both on home video, and I remember sitting in the movie theater with my dad. We went on, like, a Sunday, which was super random. We, like, went after church and we went and saw Jurassic Park 3. And I knew, like, this is when I started becoming, like, aware of, like, movie reviews and stuff like that. I saw it in the paper, and it had, like, something like 1.5 stars out of 5. And I remember just being really bummed out by that, not really knowing what it meant. I thought that was the general consensus of all the people, not realizing that that was one person's review. Now, of course, we have Rotten Tomatoes, and you can see the audience score and the critic score combined. But at the time, I didn't know that, and just being really bummed out before I saw the movie, and asking my dad, like, after we saw it, I was like, it was good, right? It was fun, right? And he was like, yeah, it was a fun movie, you know? And, I mean, Spinosaurus is so fucking cool, man. That's a fucking cool dinosaur. And I really hope they bring him back in Part 3.
Oh, I hope so, too, yeah.
But, all that said, there are elements of greatness in Fallen Kingdom. Like, everything that happens, like, the whole, like, Indoraptor, like, crawling through that mansion and everything with the rain, and it does have, like, this haunted house feel to it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I had a couple of the way that the bad guy gets it with the T-Rex and everything, like, coming out, and, like, I forget if he, like, stomps on him or if he just, like, outright eats him, but the way that the bad guy,
I think it was,
because he tries to crawl underneath the car or something like that.
Yeah, it was like him fighting. It was the T-Rex and the Carnotaurus, the little one with the spike one, and they ripped him apart, and then he stepped on him. He ate one half and stepped on the other, or something like that.
Like, shit like that was good. Not a fan of seeing my fucking Brachiosaur go up in flames.
Yeah.
Not a fan of that. I mean, even if I can kind of understand what they were going for, like, I was like, dude, that's rough, man. Fucking not a fan of Chris Pratt in the lava and the flopping. It was too cartoony. And my biggest pet peeve with that movie is human clones. Like, Why? Why do we need to do this?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It's so like I'm like that is so unnecessary.
I mean,
that did not need to happen in that movie.
It didn't, but at the same time, I was like, I can defend it because if you can clone dinosaurs, that's kind of the next step.
Yeah. You're not wrong with that by any means.
So that's why I look past it. I'm like, okay.
But to me, it's like one of those things. Was like. This doesn't do anything to move this movie about dinosaurs doesn't do anything for that, you know?
And I had read a thing after the movie came out that basically said, we wanted Jurassic World and then we wanted a world of dinosaurs, but we didn't know how to get there. So here's that movie. And that's why like there was care that went into it, but there wasn't as much as 1 and 3 had or has. So that makes me look forward to 3.
And how do you feel about everyone coming back? Are you
it's
out of your fucking mind to
see
Alan Grant again or what?
I was waiting for it in part 1. I was like, are we gonna get Jeff Goldblum in part 1? No, well, there's a book with him on it. Are we gonna get someone? No. Okay, Fallen Kingdom. Here it is. Okay, Jeff Goldblum. He's in the beginning and the end. Okay. Yeah. Well, the next one has to have all 3 of them. And so, I mean, it's the logical finisher to this trilogy. It makes sense. I'm hyped for it. Yeah, 100%. And I saw there were technically like 2 prologues to the movie. There was the Battle at Big Rock, which I really enjoyed that short film.
I watched that. I like that too.
And this prologue that they had just released.
Yeah, that one I didn't watch because I was like, if it's in the movie, like
it's not.
Oh, it's not?
They came out after, because it was when they had posted it online. They said, "Yeah, this isn't part of the movie, so don't worry about it. This is like our little trailer thing."
Okay, then I'm probably gonna watch because that was my thought. I was like, dude, I don't want to see the first 5 minutes of the movie. I want to see it
in the theaters.
2-minute trailer.
Yeah.
Like I just want to see. Fucking the T-Rex roar, and I want to see Alan Grant put on his hat. That's what I want to see.
the way that everything looks, I don't want to like. I mean,
I've read some of the I've heard that it's amazing.
It looks beautiful, like the dinosaurs look real, like because they have this like little clip of the back in prehistoric times. They have all these dinosaur things. And I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. And then it skips ahead, and then it's like, here's another little quick short film. Like that's kind of like Battle of Big Rock, but it's like picking up from the T-Rex perspective and stuff like that. And it's good. And just that alone. Oh, I mean, it's a Jurassic Park movie. I'm hyped for it.
Yeah. So, now this is where I had this thought earlier today, and this is what ties back into Christmas and Christmas movies. There's going to be a chunk of this movie that takes place in the snow, which I think is cool. And I had this thought today of, like, I was looking at something, I think it was Freddy Krueger related, and it was like, why don't they make a fucking Nightmare on Elm Street that happens during Christmas time? Like, why aren't they doing more movies? Like, they have, there's this fan film. I know there was always this push to have a Friday the 13th in the snow. And there's this fan film called Never Hike in the Snow. And it's a Friday the 13th fan film that takes place during the snow. Why don't you think there are more movies that are established, like, films that, established franchises that are like, if they want to do their gimmick or something like that, why don't they put it like during a holiday season or a holiday film like that? I feel like that's an easy gimmick to just be like, all right, cool, we're gonna do Jaws 4, but it's gonna be Christmas. It is,
I don't know. I feel like making something holiday definitely does add to a vibe of it. I mean, like, look at Gremlins. Gremlins was great, but I don't know. I think it's something with the place that they put it. It has to do with like marketing or studio stuff. Probably is the reason why. I remember like the last Predator movie that came out. That was directed by
Shane Black.
Yeah, and he is like known for doing Christmas movies.
Yeah.
So everyone thought this was going to be a Predator Christmas movie, and I was kind of hyped for that. I was like, that sounds kind of badass. Like but didn't happen like that. But it was still a fun movie. But I think it might just have to do with studio stuff, or maybe that Christmas doesn't sell for horror. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that was just something that I thought about. I was like, dude, you could like, I would love to see some of our more like iconic characters, people that are established, and just put in a different setting. Doesn't even necessarily have to be Christmas. A lot of like horror movies and stuff like that, you know, have like a Halloween backdrop or things that are happening during Halloween season, and you know.
Yeah, I definitely understand the other settings, and I know there have been a couple of.
There was like
films in the snow, like. I know the recent Paranormal Activity movie took place in like a snow.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. I hear good things about it actually.
If you take Paranormal Activity off of the title, it's great. It has nothing to do with.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it's just kind of a one-off, but it's a good movie. So.
It honestly, I feel like it was like 10 Cloverfield Lane. You know how they just like, we don't think this movie's going to do well on its own. Cloverfield, right there.
Genius. Yeah.
That's like this movie. They made this movie. They're like, well, it's a found footage movie. Those don't do too well. Paranormal Activity. Bring it back to the original.
Smart.
Yeah. But it didn't have enough to do with the overall lore of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like that movie can carry its own franchise. It did have a few cheesy things to it. Like, it was made by student filmmakers. So, like, you have all these creative shots, and hey, I can do slow motion with my camera. It's just used for a kill later on once, and it's like, there's a point in the movie where it breaks, and it's not even like handheld. It's like an actual movie, and it's like, wait, this is supposed to be a found footage movie. Why do we have these omniscient cameras around? So
yeah, that's the thing with found footage, is you're like, oh, we get a little ridiculous with how. My big thing is, you know, you would drop the camera, you would stop filming. You know, any of those, like, and there are ways around that. There are definitely ways around that. A good one, a real good found footage movie, highly underrated. As Above, So Below. Have you seen it?
I love that movie. That is honestly, of all the found footage films, Blair Witch Project, As Above, So Below, those are the two I recommend to everybody. Everything else is like, it's a found footage movie, but I love that one.
It was such a surprise for me because it got such bad reviews, and my wife and I, we were waiting to get on a plane. We were in Hawaii, and we had a couple hours to kill, and I was like, well, we can go see a movie. And I was like, well, what's out? Oh, kind of wanted to see that. Like, the premise was cool, didn't get good reviews, but fuck it. We got nothing better to do. And, like, went in and was like,
Okay, I don't remember what we're talking about.
We were talking about As Above, So Below. Sorry, we had a emergency phone call.
Yeah, dadhood calls.
Fatherhood calls. Yeah, what a wonderful little gem of a movie that was such a little surprise. Like,
yeah, it was all about archaeology, and like, I have a real big interest in archaeology and all those legends of lost treasure and supernatural myths and stuff like that. I find that really interesting because, like, what if it does exist? And this movie just hit all of that, and I enjoyed that from start to finish. And I know a lot of people didn't like it because it was too history wise, I guess.
See, I liked all that stuff. My only gripe with it is I was like, it's an R-rated movie. I was like, they're in hell. I wanted it to go a little bit
crazy.
harder.
Yeah.
The thing with the guy getting sucked into the fire, the fire car, the car that's on fire, like that to me, I was like, everyone needed to die like that.
Yeah.
Even the fact that they got out, is my biggest gripe with the movie. I was like, you shouldn't be able to get out of hell.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I liked how it all went that
to be able to figure your way out backwards, basically, you should be able to get
and
out.
how like essentially just accepting the wrongs that you've done will get you out of hell. And how like each person, you can kind of tell what each person's wrong was and what haunts them by the way that they died and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really really interesting that they didn't flat out say that a few times, but they just kind of left it to your own thing about it. Yeah. So
I don't. Gosh, I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but like we were talking about like how good that movie actually is, and that it just came out during the wrong time. Like it came out during like a slew of found footage movies, and I think it just got caught up in all of those and was underappreciated, because it's really a cool movie for sure. And I
remember, it did come out around like, I think it was like The Gallows and like Paranormal Activity 4 or 5, which the Oxnard tapes. Oh man, Gangsters versus Witches, that was a good idea.
I heard that one. I heard that one got kind of like decent reviews, actually.
Yeah, dude, it was just, they just gave up and they were like, let's just make a dumb movie. And literally, the homies from Colonia do a drive-by at the witch's house. And I'm like, that's so great. But that aside, and then there was another film that was coming out around the same time about the pyramids of Egypt.
That one I did see.
Was that any good? I still haven't seen it.
It's not great, but it certainly was not terrible. It's one of those movies that I don't even, like, I watched the one time and I can't find it anywhere. I remember having fun watching it. There's definitely some trashy CGI in it.
Okay.
But I'm on the same level with you. I love, like, treasure, like, movies gone wrong, basically. I love that aesthetic, so... But, Jeff, this was a lot of fun, man. I appreciate you coming over. This is a great conversation, and I want to do it again, and maybe we can get together and just talk about cheesy 80s horror movies. And,
well,
your thoughts on all that.
I just watched a shitload.
And maybe you can tell me a little bit more about why you hate Matt Damon, but more on that next time.
That's a really easy one. Everybody has that actor that you don't know why you hate them. That's that one guy.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon's that one guy. I just, whatever he's in, I don't know why, but everybody who knows me knows that.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well,
thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. It's been a pleasure. Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone. Get you back home to your wife before she never lets you come over here again.
Right.